Good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? How is everybody doing? Okay, so this morning we are going to be continuing with our reading. Yeah, the internet been acting up. We're not even able. I'm not able to get this thing together. But regardless of whatever is happening, happy Sunday to everybody. We are going to get it done, no matter what. Now we are currently onto the book of Second Chronicles, and guys, we are moving along. I am telling you, we are moving along. The book of Second Chronicles is a continuation of the life of David. You know, David was a great king in Jerusalem. And one thing that I've noticed in the reading, did you all notice that the Lord didn't want David to build him the tabernacle? He didn't want David to build the house of the Lord because he thought that, though David was a great king, a mighty king, a well-loved king, according to the Lord, he said, David had too much blood on his hand because after all, David did instigate a lot of wars and he did send out his henchmen to to commit a lot of massacres so that they could take over lands that he believed was theirs from the beginning, but had been taken by some descents, and so the Lord wasn't happy with it. But I'm also wondering. I mean, David has always had communication with the Lord, either through his seers or his prophets or somebody, and I'm wondering how come he wasn't told, listen, stop, listen, don't do that, listen, this is not going to be good for you. I'm wondering how comes he wasn't told all this time. But then after he had gathered up all the stuff to build the tabernacle, that was when he was told he wasn't going to be able to build the tabernacle because the Lord didn't want him to build it because of all these flaws that he had. So that was a little bit surprising to me. But his son Solomon, the Lord did say that Solomon was going to be a great king, a wise king, and Solomon was the one who was going to build the tabernacle. And even so, that didn't stop David from contributing to the tabernacle because before his death, he continued to collect gold and brass and silver and iron and all the material that was going to be needed to build the tabernacle. He continued to hoard them so that his son Solomon could have them to build the tabernacle. And so his support for his son in that quest was immeasurable. And And now in the book of Second Chronicles, we are going to be reading about how Solomon how Solomon ruled over Jerusalem after the death of his father David. Hold on, I don't hear any sound. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now let's move right along. Let's move right along and read the book of Second Chronicles. If you have not been here and you don't know what the book of First Chronicles said, you might either want to go back and listen to it, or you might want to go back and read it on your own. But today we are going to be reading Second Chronicles chapters 1 through 5. And let me just make this disclaimer that reading the Bible, while reading the Bible, we are not endorsing any particular denomination or any particular religion. In fact, We are reading the Bible so that we can be informed about its contents rather than being told what is in the Bible. We are reading it for ourselves so that we know for ourselves what is in the Bible. Now, yesterday when we were reading, we saw where the Bible told us that there is additional content about what we read in the book of First Chronicles, and it says that this content can be found in the book of Samuel, the book of Nathan, and the book of God. Now I am on a quest to locate those books so that I can see what was Nathan. Remember, Nathan was a prophet. We want to see what was Nathan's account of the the rule of David around that time. What did Nathan have to say about what was happening? And also, God, G-A-D, God, was also a seer that lived in that time. And I would love to hear what he had to say about what happened during that time, because he communicated with David a lot. He brought to David word from God that he claimed that God had told him to deliver to David. And I would have loved to hear some more of what he had to say about his communication with God, and his interactions with David and how those turned out. We didn't hear anything much about it in the chapters we've read before. So as time goes by, I will be trying to find the book of Nathan, the book and the book of God. We know we have read already the book of First and Second Samuel, and so we will continue. Let us read the book of Second Chronicles. Second Chronicles chapter 1. And Solomon, the son of David, was strengthened in his kingdom, and the Lord his God was with him, and magnified him exceedingly. Then Solomon spake unto all Israel, to the captains of thousands and of hundreds, and to the judges, and to every governor in all Israel, the chief of the fathers. So Solomon and all the congregation with him went to the high place that was at Gibeon. For there was the tabernacle of the congregation of God, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, had made in the wilderness. But the ark of God had David brought up from Kirjath Jearim to the place where David had prepared for it, for he had pitched a tent for it at Jerusalem. Moreover, the brassen altar that Bezaleel the son of Uri, the son of Ur, had made, he put before the tabernacle of the Lord. And Solomon and the congregation sought unto it. And Solomon went up thither to the brazen altar before the Lord, which was at the tabernacle of the congregation, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings. In that night did God appear unto Solomon, and said unto him, Ask what I shall give thee. Now, you all remember we had read this before, where Solomon asked, the Lord asked Solomon what he wanted. And Solomon said he wanted wisdom. He wanted to know how to judge fairly over this multitude of people, because in fact there were a lot of people that he had to judge over, and that's all he wanted. And Solomon said unto God, Thou hast shown great mercy unto David my father, and hast made me to reign in his stead. Now, O Lord God, let thy promise unto David my father be established, for thou hast made me king over a people like the dust of the earth in multitude. Give me now wisdom and knowledge, that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can judge this people? That is so great. And God said to Solomon, because this was in thine heart, and thou hast not asked for riches or wealth or honor, nor the life of your enemies, neither yet hast asked long life, but hast asked for wisdom and knowledge for thyself, that thou mayst judge my people, over whom I have made thee king. Wisdom and knowledge is granted unto thee, and I will give thee riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings have had that have been before thee, neither shall there any after thee have the like. So here the Lord is asking Solomon what he wants. Solomon says, all I want is wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to be able to rule over all these people and to rule over them fairly. And the Lord saw favor in that. And he says, since you didn't ask for wealth, you didn't ask for long life, you didn't ask for triumph over your enemies, you didn't ask for honor, you will be given wisdom like none other, like no other human being has had. You will get the wisdom and the knowledge that you seek. Then Solomon came from his journey to the high place that was at Gibeon to Jerusalem, from before the tabernacle of the congregation, and reigned over Israel. And Solomon gathered chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, which he placed in the chariot cities, and with the king at Jerusalem. And the king made silver and gold at Jerusalem as plenteous as stones, and cedar trees made he as the sycamore trees that are in the valley of abundance. And Solomon had horses brought out of Egypt, and linen yarn. The king's merchants received the linen yarn at a price. Verse 17. This is the last verse of chapter 1. And they fetched up and brought forth out of Egypt a chariot for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. And so brought they out horses for all the kings of the Hittites, and for the kings of Syria by their means. That is the end of chapter 1 of the book of 2 Chronicles. If you are here, I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for coming. You are welcome to follow along in your book Bible or your Google Bible, so that we can so that you can get your own understanding of what we are reading here. Because after all, I'm not just reading this for me. I want you all to get an understanding as well of what the Bible is really saying. We are not going yea nor nay. We are neither endorsing it one way or the other. All I'm doing is reading it, familiarizing myself with the stories that are in the Bible. And for sure, we have come across some discrepancies. And I don't think those are isolated. I think we're going to continue to find discrepancies, but we will continue to read either way. Chapter 2 of the book of 2 Chronicles. And Solomon determined to build a house for the name of the Lord, and a house for his kingdom. And Solomon told out 70,000 men to bear burdens. That's 70,000 men to bear burdens, and 80,000 to hew in the mountain, and 3,600 to oversee them. And Solomon went to Huram, the king of Tyre, saying, as thou didst deal with David my father, and didst send him cedars to build him an house to dwell therein. Even so, deal with me. So here Solomon is going to Huram. He sent to Huram to say, you had given David a lot of cedar to build his house. Can you give me some cedar as well? Behold, I build a house in the name of the Lord my God, to dedicate it to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual shewbread, and for the burnt offerings, mornings and evenings, on the Sabbaths and on the new moons, and on the solemn feasts of the Lord our God. This is an abundance forever to Israel. And the house which I build is great, for great is our God above all gods. But who is able to build him a house, seeing the heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain him? Who am I then, that I should build him a house, save only to burn sacrifice before him? Send me now, therefore, a man cunning to work in gold, and in silver, and in brass, and in iron, and in purple, and crimson, and blue, and that can skill to grave with the cunning men that are with me in Judah and in Jerusalem, whom David my father did provide. Verse 8. Send me also cedar trees, fir trees, and algum trees out of Lebanon, for I know that thy servants can skill to cut timber in Lebanon. And behold, my servants shall be with thy servants, even to prepare my timber in abundance. For the house which I am about to build shall be wonderfully great. And behold, I will give to thy servants, the hewers that cut timber, 20,000 measures of wheat, and 20,000 measures of barley, and 20,000 baths of wine, and 20,000 baths of oil. Then Huram the king of Tyre answered in writing, which he sent to Solomon, because the Lord hath loved his people, he hath made thee king over them. Huram said, moreover, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, that made heaven and earth, who hath given to David the king a wise son, endued with prudence and understanding, that might build a house for the Lord, and an house for his kingdom. And now I have sent a cunning man, endued with understanding of Huram my fathers. Verse 14. The son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, and his father was a man of Tyre, skillful to work in gold and in silver, in brass, in iron, in stone, and in timber, in purple, in blue, and in fine linen, and in crimson, also to grave any manner of graving, and to find out every device which shall be put to him with thy cunning men, and with the cunning men of the Lord David thy father. Now therefore the wheat and the barley, the oil and the wine, which my Lord hath spoken of, let him send unto his servants. And we will cut wood out of Lebanon, as much as thou shalt need, and we will bring it to thee in floats by sea to Joppa, and thou shalt carry it up to Jerusalem. Verse 17. And Solomon numbered all the strangers that were in the land of Israel, after the numbering wherewith David his father had numbered them, and they were found 150,000 and 3,600. Wow. 150,000. 153,600. 153,600. Verse 18. And this is the last verse of chapter 2 of the book of 2nd Chronicles. And he said, 70,000, that's 70,000 of them to be bearers of burdens, and 80,000 to be hewers in the mountain, and 3,600 overseers to set the people at work. So here, Solomon is gathering additional material to build the house of the Lord. And he is also gathering the skills. He's gathering the skills because it says here in verse 14 that the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan. So these were the descendants of Dan. Dan, who was a son of Jacob. So this man was a descendant of Dan, and he was very skilled in brass and silver and gold making and shaping and molding and all of that. And so Solomon was seeking out the best talents because he wanted the house of the Lord to be so magnificent, no flaws. He wanted the workmanship, the craftsmanship to be top tier. So that's what he's doing here, seeking out the best skills to work on the house of the Lord. And here we move on now to chapter 3 of the book of 2nd Chronicles. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared. Hold on. Chapter 3. We are on to chapter 3, my friends. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared to David, his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Now, I'm wondering why he selected that spot at the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Now, if you all remember, as we have been reading, you all remember a couple of days ago, we read where Ornan, why is Ornan significant and why I remember the name as we are reading now is that in the reading a couple of days ago, when it said that the Lord was angry at David for having picked up the census, for having counted the children of Israel, and the Lord had sent the death angel to Jerusalem as punishment for David having done something he was told specifically not to do. The death angel started to slay people, and the death angel had slain a total of 7,000 people before the Lord stopped him. When the Lord saw that he was really, he took the instructions to another level. And he was really going at it and just slaying people left and right. And the Lord stopped the angel from the massacre. And when the angel was stopped, the angel was at the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. That's why I remember this person's name. Now, right where the angel had stopped is where David has selected to build the tabernacle of the Lord. And he began to build in the 2nd day of the 2nd month, in the 4th year of his reign. Okay. So in the 4th year of Solomon's reign, he starts to build the the temple of the Lord. Now, these are the things wherein Solomon was instructed for the building of the house of God. The length by cubits after the first measure was 60 cubits, and the breadth was 20 cubits. And the porch that was in the front of the house, the length of it was according to the breadth of the house, 20 cubits. And the height was 120, and he overlaid it within with pure gold. And the greater house he sealed with fir tree, which he overlaid with fine gold, and set thereon palm trees and chains. And he garnished the house with precious stones for beauty, and the gold was gold of Parvain. He overlaid also the house, the beams, the posts, and the walls thereof, and the doors thereof with gold, and graved cherubims on the walls. And he made the most holy house, the length whereof was according to the breadth of the house, 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits. And he overlaid it with fine gold, amounting to 600 talents. And the weight of the nail was 50 shekels of gold. And he overlaid the upper chambers with gold. And in the most holy house he made two cherubims of image work, and overlaid them with gold. And the wings of the cherubims were 20 cubits length. One wing of the one cherubim was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was likewise 5 cubits, reaching to the wing of the other cherub. And one wing of the other cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house. And the other wing was 5 cubits also, joining to the wing of the other cherub. So the two cherubs were standing wing to wing and wing to wall. All right, let us continue. Verse 13. The wings of these cherubims spread themselves forth 20 cubits, and they stood on their feet, and their faces were inward. And he made the veil of blue, and purple, and crimson, and fine linen, and wrought cherubims thereon. And he made before the house 2 pillars of 35 cubits high. And the chapiter that was on the top of each of them was 5 cubits. And he made chains as in the oracle, and put them on the heads of the pillars, and made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the chains. Now y'all remember back when we were reading about how the Lord was telling Moses, how Moses was directing the people, I should say. Well, the Lord told Moses told the people how the priests were supposed to dress, and what colors they were supposed to use, and what lengths they were supposed to use, and the type of material and the designs and all. You'll remember that there were also pomegranates he wanted at the hems of their robes. And I keep wondering, what's the significance of pomegranates? Pomegranates seem to have a holy representation, because whenever there is something holy being spoken about, I don't know if you all noticed, but I have, pomegranates were included. So I'm sure as we read some more, we are going to hear more about the pomegranate, because the pomegranate was mentioned by Moses for the robes of the priest. The robes were to be adorned with pomegranates on the hem. And here we are seeing where pomegranates are also in verse 16 of chapter 3 of the book of 2 Chronicles. And he made chains, as in the oracle, and put them on the heads of the pillars, and made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the chains. And he reared up the pillars before the temple, one on the right hand and the other on the left, and called the name of that on the right hand Jachin, and the name of that on the left hand Boaz. Let us continue. I want to say thanks to you all for coming into the reading this morning. I sincerely appreciate you all. We are currently reading the book of 2 Chronicles. You can follow along with me in your book Bible or your Google Bible, because we are reading so that we can get our own understanding of the Bible. So come along with me, guys. Let's read chapter 4 of the book of 2 Chronicles. Moreover, he made an altar of brass, 20 cubits the length thereof, and 20 cubits the breadth thereof, and 10 cubits the height thereof. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under it was the similitude of oxen, which did compass it round about, 10 in a cubit. Compassing the sea round about, 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. Verse 4. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking towards the north, and 3 looking towards the west, 3 looking towards the south, and 3 looking towards the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. God, good morning. Bless up your nice clean self, sis. How are you doing here in this blessed Sunday morning? So good to see you. So good to see you. Verse 5. And the thickness of it was a handbreadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies, and it received and held 3,000 baths. Verse 6 of chapter 4 of the book 2 Chronicles. He made also 10 lavers, and put 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left, to wash in them. Such things as they offered for the burnt offering they washed in them, but the sea was for the priest to wash in. And he made 10 candlesticks of gold, according to their form, and set them in the temple, 5 on the right hand, and 5 on the left. He made also 10 tables, and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right side, and 5 on the left. And he made 100 basins of gold. Furthermore, he made the court of the priests, and the great court, and doors for the court, and overlaid the doors of them with brass. And he set the sea on the right side of the east end, over against the south. And Huram made the pots, and the shovels, and the basins. And Huram finished the work that he was to make for King Solomon for the house of God, to wit, the 2 pillars, and the pommels, and the chapiters which were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 wreaths to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were on the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates on the 2 wreaths, 2 rows of pomegranates on each wreath, to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were upon the pillars. He made also bases and lavers made he upon the bases, 1 sea, and 12 oxen under it. The pots also, and the shovels, and the fleshhooks, and all their instruments did Huram his father make to King Solomon for the house of the Lord God, of brass, bright brass. Hmm. Verse 17. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them, in the clay ground between Succoth and Zeradatha. Thus Solomon made all these vessels in great abundance, for the weight of the brass could not be found out. And Solomon made all the vessels that were for the house of God, the golden altar also, and the tables whereon the shewbread was set. Moreover, the candlesticks with their lamps, that they should burn after the manner before the oracle of pure gold. And the flowers and the lamps and the tongues made ye of gold, and that perfect gold. Verse 22, and this is the last verse of chapter 4. And the snuffers and the basins and the spoons and the censers of pure gold, and the entry of the house, the inner doors thereof, for the most holy place, and the doors of the house of the temple were of gold. Wow, so this is the mighty house of the Lord that Solomon is building here, using as much gold and silver and precious stones and all that he can find. And he has sought the help of Uram, the king of Tyre, to help him to perfect all these sculptures and structures of the house of the Lord. And he's getting that well-needed help because he wants everything to be perfect, because he wants this house of the Lord to be so magnificent. Let's move on to chapter 5 of the book of 2 Chronicles. Thus, all the work that Solomon made for the house of the Lord was finished, and Solomon brought in all the things that David his father had dedicated, and the silver and the gold and all the instruments. But he among the treasures among the treasures of the house of God. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel, and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. Wherefore, all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. And they brought up the ark, and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priests and the Levites bring up. Also King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitude. So here they were bringing up. So remember the Ark of the Covenant? The Ark of the Covenant is very symbolic for the children of Israel. The children of Israel, they believe this Ark of the Covenant, it belongs with them. It is a symbol of their dedication to their God. Now remember, when they left out of Egypt, they brought their Ark of the Covenant with them. Now you all remember when the Philistines took them captive, the Philistines took possession of their Ark of the Covenant. So it's like this Ark of the Covenant is so sacred to them that no king that has assumed the position of king in Israel can be at peace knowing that the Ark of the Covenant is in the hands of the enemy. And so each time somebody would take possession of the Ark of the Covenant, each time their enemies would take possession of the Ark of the Covenant, they would be determined to get it back. Now, this time it is sitting in Jerusalem, because remember, David had taken it from the enemy and brought it to Jerusalem. So there it is. So now that Solomon has built this permanent house of the Lord, this permanent tabernacle, now finally the Ark of the Covenant can have a final place to sit and not be moved. And so here they have gone into Jerusalem to get the Ark of the Covenant, to bring it into this lavish temple that Solomon has built, so that it can finally have its place. Let us continue. We are on to verse 5. And they brought up the ark and the tabernacle of the congregation and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These the priests and the Levites bring up. Also King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitudes. And the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place, to the oracle of the house, into the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves of the ark, that the ends of the staves were seen from the ark before the oracle, but they were not seen without. And there it is unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables which Moses put therein at Horeb, when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel, when they came out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, for all of the priests that were present were sanctified, and did not then wait by course. Also the Levites, which were the singers. You know, the Levites were the singers, and also the Levites were the ones who were permitted to touch the Ark of the Covenant. The Levites were the ones who were permitted. They were the ones who were permitted to put their hands on the Ark of the Covenant. Now, you all remember when they were one point when they had taken the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant, from the Philistines, and they were carrying it to Jerusalem. Y'all remember all the man named Uzzah, when the chariot rocked and Uzzah thought the Ark of the Covenant was going to fall off and break, he held on to it. And because he held on to it, the Lord struck him dead. He wasn't supposed to touch it. And that angered David greatly. So here we see in chapter 12 of 2 Chronicles, chapter 5 of 2 Chronicles and verse 12, also the Levites, which were the singers, all of them, of Asaph, of Heman, of Jeduthun, with their sons and their brethren, being arrayed in white linen, having cymbals and psalteries and harps, stood at the east end of the altar, and with them 120 priests sounding the trumpets. It came even to pass, as the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music, and you know here they spell music like music, M-U-S-I-C-K. and praised the Lord, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. That then the house was filled with a cloud, even the house of the Lord. Chapter 14, verse 14, and this is the last verse of chapter 5. So that the priest could not stand to minister by reason of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of God. All right, here is the reading of the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 5. I want to say thanks to everybody who has come into the live, everybody who has stopped by on the live. I sincerely appreciate you all. I see the amazing M&G just coming. Amazing M&G, what's up, my dear sister? Let me see if my internet is coming back on, because my internet has been acting up the whole of last night. The internet has been acting really foul. I don't know what else to do with it. The amazing M&G. Let me see if I can. The amazing M&G right here. Let me see. Oh, I don't know this. Oh, this missed me. See, it's just spinning. It's not acting right at all. It's just spinning. OMG. Let me see if this one, the amazing M&G. Let me see if. All right, here you are. My iPad comes on, so my iPad comes on, so I will run you on the iPad right here, because the iPad the iPad has internet no matter what. It has like it doesn't have to use the internet at the house. It has like I don't know what they call that. Forever internet? I don't know. But the iPad does have that kind of internet. Whatever they call it. All right, here we go. All right, M&G, that is you right there. Eating up all the mango of Portland. Oh my gosh. That is you right there. There you go. Hold on. Let me turn it on, but I don't want to be too. See there. Watch it. So now you are playing on the iPad, and here you're coming on the phone, but you're not staying on the phone. The phone is just coming in and out, in and out, in and out. You are so welcome, my love, every time, all the time, all the time. No problem, my darling. No problem at all. All right. So I have one quiz. I have one quiz for you all today. I have one quiz for you all today. Let's see who can answer the quiz. Of David captains and chief men, which one dared to challenge David about the census? Of David captains and chief men, which one of them had dared to challenge David about the census? Now remember, the Lord had told David never to pick up no census among the children of Israel, never to count them. He said they shall number like the sands on the ocean, like the sands on the sea. and he should never count them. And David disobeyed and ordered the men to go count the children of Israel. Now, which of those men was among David's chief men, stood up to David and said, "No, what are you doing? We're not supposed to do that. Why are you doing that? Why are you going against the word of the Lord?" Which one was brave enough to stand up to David in that regard? Come on, people. That is the question of the day. That is the question of the day. And for those of you who have been reading along with me, those of you who have been following me as we have been reading the Bible, I hope you have been enjoying I hope you all have been enjoying the reading as much as I have been enjoying it, because the discoveries that I have made, I am for sure that I could never have made those discoveries just by going to church or listening to somebody do a sermon or anything like that. I never could have learned all that I have learned from just reading the Bible for myself and understanding what I'm reading in the context in which it was written and the context in which the supposed events occurred. And I gotta pat myself on the shoulder. I'm really glad this idea came to me to read the Bible for myself like this, because I told you back when I was young, I read the Bible, but I never read it with this much understanding. I never read it with this much desire or determination to understand it and to sort of pick it apart. Because back then, you have your convictions and you are not reading the Bible with any intent to alter your convictions. So you are going in sort of with blinders. You're just reading it. But now that I have read several other books in my lifetime, I read the Bible with a different perspective. I read it now more with an open mind. When I read it 30 years ago, I read it just to read it. Now I read it with an open mind, a mind that is not clouded by any conviction at all. I'm just reading it and understanding it as I read it. Just as I would pick up a book that I know nothing about and start reading that book. And from reading that book, I get a feel of the mindset of the author. The same way I am reading this book. And by the way, reading the Bible has taught me it's not anything about any inspiration from God. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. It's people retelling the stories of their experiences at that time. That's what it is. Because if it was something that says it was inspired by God, then every single thing we'd be reading would give us some massive amounts of inspiration. But it's not, because I don't think you all expect to get inspiration from all these massacres, do you? Well, I know I don't. I don't expect to get inspiration from these massacres. I don't expect to get inspiration from all this thievery that had gone on here. I don't expect to get inspiration from all this revenge and murders. And no, I don't expect to get inspiration from those. So certainly that brings me to the realization that, of course, it's not men inspired by God. It was men. The seers wrote their account, the prophets wrote their account, the kings wrote their account, the priests wrote their account. Everybody writes their account of what happened. And that is why some of the stories are a little bit distorted, because my account as the king would be different from your account as the prophet. And that would also be different from the account of the priest. Everybody's perspective is different, even though it is about the same story, the same events that occurred at that time. It's just like right now. I could write an article. I could write an article about say racism in America. And 1,000 years from now, somebody could read that article that I wrote and they get the perspective of it based on what I wrote. And somebody else could write another article about racism in America and it brings forth a totally different perspective. Because it's all about the choice, the writer's choice of words, and the writer's choice of content. And that will give the reader a different perspective based on who wrote the article. So it's just the same thing. Because this story in 2Chronicles here, we read the same story about David collecting up all the gold and silver and all that stuff to make the tabernacle. We read about that in the Kings. We read about that in the Samuels. Different perspective, but the same story, the same thing they're talking about. All right. So who is going to tell me the name of the chief, the name of David's chief, the one that challenged David about counting the children of Israel? That is the quiz of the day. Oh my God, my phones are not coming on and I don't know. And this is aggravating because when my phones don't come on, I feel lost. It's saying you don't have permission to view this page. It's not this, Jesus. My phone is not coming on at all. Oh well. Come on, guys. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. You are so welcome, Sister Faith. You are so welcome. You are absolutely welcome, my love. It is my absolute pleasure. It is my absolute pleasure coming here and reading it for us. Because I am enjoying reading it as well. And I'm glad that you all are enjoying the reading. And by you all listening, at least it saves you from sitting there with your Bible. You can just say, all right, I'll just listen. I will just listen to Trev reading the Bible. Oh wow, so people. Oh no, this is something here, so something right here. So I'm waiting for someone to tell me. So since nobody knows, and we are going to move right along. What? What is going on here? Where is Cod? Cod, what was the name of the captain, of David's captain, who challenged him about the census? Okay, so for those of you who are here, let me just share it with you because it's going to come up when we do when we do the quiz on Thursday, it's going to come up that Joab, Joab was the captain who challenged David. Joab was the captain. You know, Joab was really a force to be reckoned with in David's army. David had chosen him, but I mean, David had chosen him as one of his chief. David had chosen him as one of his chief men. And when he chose the 30 most important men, he chose 3 out of that 30. And Joab was one of them. He really valued Joab's knowledge, Joab's strength, Joab's ability to fight, and his ability to stand up. He wasn't afraid of anything. And so Joab was very, very valuable. And we see where Joab is mentioned quite a bit. Whenever David had to make a decision, Joab was always the one there. When Absalom was out to take David's life, Joab was right there by his side. Joab was the one giving the instructions where David should be, how he should hide, and making sure that David was safe. Joab didn't hold his tongue. Joab was the one who spoke up to David and said, you know, it is so sad that we are here trying to protect you from Absalom. And at the same time, you are trying to protect Absalom from us. We would take Absalom's life in a minute, in a heartbeat, just so that he would not take yours. And at the same time, you don't want us to take his life. So that means, you know, like us, you would rather for us to die than for your son Absalom, who is trying to kill you. And he was the one who spoke up. I can't say he wasn't a yes man. Exactly. Joab was not a yes man. You know, he was the one, he spoke up. Remember when Adonijah had declared himself king? Joab was the one who spoke up to David, like, what's going on here? What are we doing here? You know, he was the one, he never backed down. When David said, listen, we're going to take up a census. We're going to take up a census. You know, we're going to count all the children of Israel, all the descendants. We're going to count everybody. Joab was the one who said, but King David, we're not supposed to do that. God not already tell you, say you're not to count the children of Israel. So why you decide to you're going to do that? And David said, yeah, he must the king, and he must say that they need to count the children of Israel. And so they went out and counted the children of Israel. And for that, the children of Israel were punished because David ended up counting them when he shouldn't have. And then on top of that, because Joab had challenged David in so many ways. He had challenged David in so many ways. David pretended like it didn't matter, like, you know, he loved Joab and all, but in David's heart, David was angry. Yeah, in his heart, he was angry with Joab. Because remember, when Solomon took over, Joab was on David's hit list. He told his son Solomon to take care of Joab. And even though Joab was his right hand and had been so good to him, he claimed that because Joab had slain those 2 men, he said Joab had spilled innocent blood. You see how life is unfair? You see how life is unfair? Imagine, David is the king, David is the king, Joab is his right-hand man. All right? David has committed so much slaughter. He has sent Joab so many times to commit so many massacres. And Joab had gone willingly, and committed all these massacres in the name of David, for David. And 2 times, Joab slew 2 people. All right? David wasn't happy. with Solomon slaying those two people. Yet, I mean, with Joab slaying those two people. Yet, David kept Joab on as his right hand man still. But when he was on his deathbed, he told his son Solomon that he should kill Joab. On his deathbed. And it makes me wonder, because Joab was so valuable to David, it makes me wonder if David, having instructed Solomon to kill Joab, if he did not want he didn't want Joab to share his wisdom with Solomon. Because for Joab having been with David so long, he must have known a mighty lot. And I don't see no book from Joab. Joab should be able to give an account of all the things that David had done, because he had been with David from the beginning. And I'm wondering if there wasn't an ulterior motive for David to have instructed Solomon to not allow Joab to live. I'm sure maybe maybe somewhere in the Bible they might say it, and maybe not. But we are going to also try to find those books to read. The book of Nathan the prophet, the book of God the seer. We are going to try to find those books so that we can read them and find out what was the account of these people, of their experiences around that time. All right. So that is going. Yes, Kad, you got it right. Joab was, in fact, the one person who was willing to challenge David about the census that he was speaking of. Joab was the one who was willing to confront him. All right. So, guys, that is going to be the end of the reading of the Bible for today. I want to say thanks to everybody who came into the live. Thanks to you all for participating in the live. I sincerely appreciate you all. When we come back tomorrow, we will continue the reading from the book of 2Chronicles. We will be reading from chapter 6, where God said, Solomon was the wisest man. He got his wisdom from God Almighty himself. Well, yes, Solomon asked for wisdom, which he got. But that still doesn't mean that Joab couldn't contribute to Solomon's kingdom, because he knew so much about David's kingdom. So I'm sure that he could have contributed a lot. But we will see as we continue the reading of the Bible. Once again, I want to say thanks to you all for having come into the live, for having stayed with me, for having participated in the live. I sincerely appreciate you all. So come back again, join me later on. Join me tomorrow when we will continue the reading of the Bible. Until then, my friends, go have yourselves a great Sunday. All right. When we come back in a little bit, I'm going to be reading another chapter of the book Grace Under Fire. All right, guys, have yourselves a great day, everybody. See you all in a few minutes.